thank you for choosing to attend my talk. Indeed, this is a meta presentation, a presentation on presentation, so to say. I am by no means an expert, so my advice is anecdotal, or it's like recounting advice that I've been given in the past that I think is valuable, things that I've observed. Bear with me. As this is the Young Researchers Forum, please interrupt me, stop me, ask questions, clarify something, or challenge my advice. I don't mind. I want this to be a discussion, but I appreciate that it is a talk, so I know it might be tough. But yeah, if you've got a question, please stop me. Yeah, and it's not a general talk, it's quite a sort of soft skills talk, mostly about engagement, hence the title, how I try to make my talks engaging. So without further ado, here is the overview. The presentation will be split into 3 parts. There'll be a conversation on soft skills. I've got 6 soft skills I think will make your presentations better, more engaging. Then I'll give some basics that I think can apply to any talk length up to maybe 45 minutes or an hour. Those science or not science, this is all as soft as I can make it. And then part 3 is about, well, how to implement this, how to use some of these ideas. And in theory, this is a very actionable presentation. You should be able to close your eyes for 99% of the talk, open it for 1 minute, listen to me before going back to sleep, and have something to take home to try, or to improve on, or to practice or something. So on every slide, or every other slide at least, there should be something actionable and doable for you, hopefully. And I hope everyone can take something away, whether you've done 1,000 presentations or you're yet to do your first. The first in the soft skills part of part 1 is using your voice. I'm attempting to do this now. It's important to be loud, be heard. It's important to speak slowly, something I find very difficult, as you can probably already tell. And be expressive, right? You want to be heard, you want people to kind of be on board, like support your message, or listen to your science, or listen to your soft presentations. And so the more expressive you are, the more encouraging and enthusiastic you sound, the more likely you are to have ears and eyes on you at any point, and the less likely you are to have someone check their emails midway through the talk. Because when you're giving a paper presentation, for example, the time where you give the talk is in theory your best advert. Because a lot of people might see the archive notification and might read your abstract, but they're not likely to actually sit down and gobble up all the details of your talk. This is the best opportunity to give some of the details. The more expressive you are, the more you keep them hooked before they check their emails, the more they're going to hear about your science, well, the better that is for your work. And, well, not necessarily science. The other part is eye contact. I've attempted to, although people have just walked in the room, give every single person eye contact at some point already, which is tough. And now that I'm talking about it, it gets real weird. Now you're looking away. Some of you are looking a bit good for you. A couple of bits of 2 don'ts and 1 do. 1 don't is don't look at nobody, right? If I start looking at the floor or the ceiling, or I look above you or the door, like my way out, it doesn't feel very personal anymore. It doesn't feel like I care. It doesn't feel like, it just feels awkward, right? This is a very strange format. It's also quite distracting for me to look at the door and present to you. And the other thing is don't look at someone individually really hard, right? I've chosen you. Thank you for introducing me. It's better than looking at nobody. It's better than looking at the door, but everyone around you feels disconnected, and people on the other side of the room feel really, really disconnected. And it's really painful for you as well. And so this is tough, right? You're kind of advised when you're nervous to maybe look just above the audience, or look at someone that you know really closely, a good friend, or your supervisor, or something like this. This is fine if you're really, really, really struggling, but it's a general don't. I've tried to give every single person eye contact, but I'm not reading you this room like a book, right? I'm not swaying side to side like a pendulum. It's kind of weird and looks unnatural. I was told when I was going to classes on public speaking that you should try the figure of 8 pattern, which is a bit strange. I don't think I use it so much now, but it's quite a useful idea of, you kind of draw a rough figure of 8, and you kind of hit almost everyone, right? There's a kind of dense under you in the middle, and there's a wider part of the front, well, unfortunately, a wider part of you at the back. And so you can kind of trace a rough figure of 8, and you hit 90% of people. You can deviate from your figure of 8. And you can kind of slowly hit everyone, just about. That is kind of a nonsense technique, but I think it works. It's just some sort of algorithmic technique to attempting to hit everyone's eyes, and it kind of works. And eventually you become natural, and you stop thinking about it, and it becomes fluid. And now you're kind of experiencing what I tried to explain earlier about concrete. You've got 1 minute, and I've given you 1 actionable technique. So I hope this works. And if you've got questions, like if you don't believe in this, like the last time I gave this presentation once before, I got heckled at this moment. They went, oh, that technique's bollocks. And so I challenged them, and we had a discussion. So if you've got questions, seriously ask them. That's the last time I'll make that bit. Part 3, positioning and movement. You've probably noticed already that I'm wandering around. It's kind of like if you're trying to entertain a baby, if you move, they're going to watch you, right? I'm not calling you babies, but it works. If you stare at something moving, you're going to be more engaged, right? I've been moving left to right. I've been doing it with kind of no real aim or goal. I'm just kind of moving. It just helps to keep eyes on you. If you get really good at this is like above my pay grade, you can start to use positions to talk about different things. You can talk about some kind of thing here, some kind of thing there. I think this is more for emotive presentations and if you want to like get in the audience face, like suddenly you're really listening to me now. But I don't know how to do this in science. Like maybe on the right side I talk about proofs and on the left side I talk about definitions. You can be creative with this, but the more you move the better. Like find an excuse to move. Just don't stand behind your laptop. This doesn't have a podium, so actually this isn't so bad. I don't want to block my slides. But if there was a podium, right, it's not so personal anymore, right? It's a bit awkward. I look smaller. The people at the back who don't want to see me definitely can't see me anymore, right? It's much better if you stand in front of your laptop, especially if there's a podium or a table or something. Yeah, try and move from side to side. Give yourself an excuse for doing it. It's just simple. it's not hard. The next, and this one's kind of weird, I'll talk about it like eye contact, is body language and gesticulation. The most important thing is to stand up, be tall, be big, right? It doesn't matter whether you're short or tall. Bring your shoulders back, like have as much presence as you physically can. People will listen to you more than if you're hunched over, like looking at the floor. This one's probably fairly obvious. The other bit is gesticulation. If you don't know what gesticulation is, it's the thing I'm doing all the time, which is moving my arms and hands like a bit of an idiot. It's kind of difficult, but if you're not good at it, I think I'm quite natural with gesticulation, at least that's what I've been told. You can start to imagine doing your presentation silently and try to imagine what you would say with your hands, like some sort of like pseudo sign language, in order to demonstrate your point, like maybe something is bounded or big or small. And so if you start developing some sort of hand symbols that feel relatable, your audience is going to be engaged. It's kind of like the same with movement. Yeah, I don't know if describing your ideas silently will help, but just try and move your arms. Like, don't keep them static. Definitely do not keep them behind you. I did that at the start of the presentation and realized I was doing it, just slowly brought them out without looking too strange. Yeah, just like be open, wide stance, wide arms. You've probably seen a lot of this. If you like took an average frame from the video that I'm recording of this presentation, I probably look like this. I'm trying to be big and noticeable. The next bit is personableness. This one's kind of tough. The first thing I did was thank the audience. So this is like, there's Toastmasters in the UK, it's a public speaking organisation, and this is like one rule of Toastmasters, which is you thank the audience for attending the talk. I did the same thing. You should be thankful for your invitation, or your opportunity to present, whatever it may be. Just try and be warm to your audience as much as possible. You're like really struggling to keep everyone listening at any given moment, especially when you're talking about science. And the nicer you are to them, the more likely they are to be nice to you back. And yeah, try and like mix something up. I, instead of telling a joke, decided to give you a funny title slide, right? Because when I last gave this presentation, I talked, and you'll see it in a bit, about title slides very briefly. And my title slide for the first rendition of this was rather boring. It was just text with my title and my name and the location of the talk. It was a bit pants. And so I said, I'll make it more interesting this time, which is why I gave that big, silly gold frame of me giving the talk of this talk, right? And there's a lot more intriguing when you're looking at this like, oh, who's this idiot? And that was my way of telling a joke somehow, to sort of like break the gap between the speaker and the audience, right? I'm no different to you, I'm a young researcher as well. And so I kind of want you to, I don't want this to feel like a lecture, right? It should never feel like a lecture when you're going to talk. The kind of, another really important thing is storytelling. I got to send this to a friend once. Your audience members are log space chewing machines. And it kind of stuck. It's a funny analogy. Your audience has surprisingly little memory, and that's not like you guys are all stupid. That's not the case. You're far too intelligent for your own good. You're just thinking ahead to the next bit, or thinking about what your presentation is going to be like. You're very easily like leading off the non-deterministic path and stopping, focusing on my presentation. And also, if I asked you what was slide 2, like, that was slide 2, right? And we're already on slide 8. What happened there? You have to remind your audience all the time of the story you're attempting to tell, and keep your story as simple as bloody possible. Make it linear. Don't have any like side stories and plot holes and weird things going on. Keep on the straight and narrow. Give definitions, build up, give a theorem, and really make it simple. Like, look at your slides, think about your talk, and go, like, would my mum, my dad understand this? Like someone who's like a layperson, maybe you come from a family of academics, but someone outside of science, would they follow the story? If the answer is no, you need to change your story. It's quite hard to tell stories, especially in scientific talks, but just make sure it's linear. If you jump around, when you went from, I don't know, definition A to point B, and you're jumping to point C, they forgot definition A, and if you use definition A and point C, you're going to lose a large chunk of the audience. Make sure it's A, B, and if you're going back, go A, C. Really label your story out. And I've probably said 3 things over and over again, or I've said many things 3 times over and over again. If you want someone to understand something and try to remember it, you've got to tell them a lot of times. There's this repeat your important points thrice. This will come up in this presentation, don't worry. This is to kind of combat your log space audience, right? If you tell them something over and over again, they're going to dedicate one of their log many bits of memory to the thing you just said, right? And so now a recap, because we finished the first part, and we're going to go on to the second part. I gave you 6 things I told you about using your voice and trying to be loud and expressive. I've kind of tried to get you to think about sharing your eye contact with everyone in the audience. This one is kind of painful, and especially when I'm talking about it, it's especially painful. So don't talk about it, just do it. Try to move, try to gesticulate, they're kind of in the same bubble. Keep your shoulders back, be open, be wide, be loud, be noticeable. And yeah, try to show your personality. I hope I've done that already. I hope you feel warm and engaged in my talk. And keep your stories simple, like I am trying to now. I'm now repeating twice the plan for this talk. It will come up one more time. As I said, you should report your important points thrice. Now I'm going to talk about part 2, slideshow basics. The first is to know your slides. So I'm not looking. Right, this is a test if I know my slides. So the first bit is you should never read off your slides. I believe that's correct. The next bit is that you should always try to simplify your slides. If you're struggling to remember your slides, it's probably that your slides are a bit too complicated. And the third point is that you should find a way that works for you in order to try to memorize your slideshow. So I'll give an example of the way I try to memorize my slides. And it's a bit strange, but I did it once and it really landed for some reason. I finished my slide deck, and then I kind of skimmed through it and sort of imagined what the talk's like in my head. That's probably quite normal. I imagine some of you have done that before. But then, once I've kind of like really oiled down my slides into like a sort of pure form, I'm almost certainly going to present up to very, very like minute details, I sit and I write on pen and paper exactly what I'm going to say. It's not a script, because I'm not going to memorize a script, because it's just insane, but I just sit there and I pretend I'm talking, but I use pen and paper. I think it forces me to think slower and to be more deliberate about the main points I'm going to say. It reminds me to thank the audience, it reminds me of very important points, and it kind of makes you realize that when you're spending the most time speaking, where your important points lie. I don't know if that works for everyone. Give it a try. If you're struggling to remember your slides, you're struggling to remember your presentations, try different methods. Try my method of handwriting what you're going to say. You don't need to sit and reread what you wrote. Just the once through is in my opinion, enough. But maybe that doesn't work. Maybe you need practice presentations. Like, give different methods a shot. Something will hopefully land. The thing that landed for me was not what I expected. This one requires no more than the 1 point. Go figure. This is something my supervisor gave to me after I think I gave my first practice talk for a conference. There was a slide with like 3 things on it: a definition, and a theorem, and then a proof in a little box in the corner. And he was like, 1 point per slide. And he made it like, it was stupid. As soon as I split them up, it was really obvious what's going on. Keep it linear, like I said earlier, but take those 3 things, the definition, the theorem, and the proof, and put them on individual slides. Make sure that when you look at a slide, there is 1 point to the slide. This presentation was really easy to do this. Right, the title is the point, and each slide basically has 1 point and 1 piece of actionable advice on the side of it. It does get more difficult when you're doing a conference presentation, I will admit. But if you look at a slide and you're doing something like giving a complicated theorem statement where the terms are weird, and then you're giving a little like intuitive proof of what's going on. That's a very normal looking slide, and some of you are either going to do it in this conference, or will see it in this conference. In fact, I'll conjecture 90% of you will either do it or see it. Try to separate it out, and if your theorem statement is complicated and weird and interesting and worth just understanding, irrespective of the proof, that is a point, make it a slide. And if your proof is interesting and informative and worth showing someone, that is also a point, make it a slide. And if there's some relationship between the theorem and the proof, that is also a point, make it a slide. So you can have statement, proof, statement and proof as 3 slides in a row, and then you're already repeating your important points twice. It's like double points, it's amazing. Okay, less is more. This is probably something you've heard a million times. This is where I think my advice is kind of calibrated towards the shorter form talks. This is kind of ironic because I'm saying the pictures are better than nothing, it's better than text, and I'm doing that with text, which is tough. It's kind of hard to illustrate this point with a picture, unfortunately. I did really try to make a picture for that point, but I couldn't cook it up. Don't have walls of text and slides. You will see it, you'll know what it's like when you've been to lectures, and it's just, it hits you like trying to be like up there. And you fall off the talk, right? And I have this kind of weird analogy or feeling for a talk, which is like riding a mechanical ball, right? You're on the ball and it's like throwing you around, and you're like trying to listen to talk, oh god, this is difficult, I don't understand what's going on. And at some point you fall off the ball. And when the ball's still moving, there ain't no way you're getting back on the ball. Right, that's the talk keeping going. As soon as you hear a big wall of text, you've been like bucked off, you're like, whoa, I don't understand what's going on. And then you've stopped understanding the next couple of slides, and as soon as you've got the mental capacity to try to like get back on the ball, it's basically impossible. It really is difficult to listen to a scientific talk, go to like a different place for 5 minutes and come back in the room and really reconnect with the talk. It's seriously difficult. So try to make sure that as the presenter you do that. Right, keep it simple. I tried to give an example, and then I got challenged on it, and I agree this is not the best example. But generally speaking, picture of automata is better than symbol definition of automata, especially for a short talk. Right? If you're doing a highlights talk or one of the fairly short talks at MSCS, it's generally better to give someone something they can grapple with. Right? If I just give you an automaton definition as like A is sigma Q delta Q initial and final, like, oh my god, what's going on? Like, there's so many symbols. But if I show you a picture of a DFA, you're like, oh, I get it. I know what a DFA is. You kind of feel it immediately. Most people, when manipulating automata, don't think like that. They think more like that. It's not 100%. I know. But this advice is tailored to short talks, as I said already, because in longer form talks, sometimes you really do need the details. If you're giving a proper length seminar, I don't know, an hour long, maybe lean on the more detailed side. But for shorter talks, when you're trying to maximize engagement, stop people going on their emails or checking their phone or whatever, then yeah, I would generally go for pictures and simpler messaging. Or just nothing. Look at your slides. I did this for this presentation, and I almost went through, almost word by word, and went like, do I need that word? 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 And I really scraped some stuff out. At some point you get to a point where you're like over-compressing what you've already tried to compress, and then you're introducing complicated language to reduce the number of words. At that point you should stop, quit while you're ahead. But I removed a few points from the slide because they weren't really saying much, and I realized I was going to say them. This is also true in your presentations. You can say a lot of the things that you want to have as text on your slides. As long as people are engaged, they're listening to you, and if they're curious, they'll ask you more. It will stick better when you have less on your slides. I'd like to believe this is a reasonable example of that, but the future will say. The fourth point is title slides, I think, are more important than people give credit. You'll see a range of title slides, and you can like go and look at yours after this and have a think about it. This is just an opinion piece at this point. I don't think this is like really seriously definitely correct, but I think more detail is better on title slides to completely contradict my previous slide. So title slides and conclusion slides, I think, are these like separate beasts that you should handle differently to your other slides, and I think they should have maybe disproportionately more information on them. I like to have a title slide like this. It's the last conference I went to and gave a talk at, and I have photos of people, which is kind of engaging. I have like names and affiliations, which is standard. And then I have the details of the room. The details of the room is just in case someone walks in and they're like, am I at the right session? And they look at that and they're like, right? Or they go like, oh yeah, that's what I wanted to attend. Because not everyone checks the program properly, trust me. I'm included in that conversation. And so this is useful information. And it's just nice to have the kind of the scene set, have the location. I like doing this. It's not necessary by any means. But the title slides, unlike your other slides, is on the screen for quite a while. Like when people are kind of flooding in, especially like this session just after lunch, my title slide was sat there for the longest out of all the slides so far. And half of you were here with a few minutes advance, and you're looking at the slide, and you probably read every word on there. You could, in theory, kind of take this opportunity to jam more information on your title slide and kind of get people reading and curious. Maybe ask an interesting question on your title slide, or explain something, give something for people to digest when they walk in, right? It's kind of like a free opportunity to use people's time. I go for pictures, because pictures of faces are good. Question?
Wait, who is that guy in the middle?
I'm not sure. Funny looking chap, isn't he? Yeah, and the same is true for conclusion slides. They're equally important. I go even harder on my conclusion slides. So I said I put a fair amount of information on my title slide. I put an unreasonable amount of information on my conclusion slides. These blank thank you slides hurt my head so much. They irrationally, like, really get under my skin. You know the ones, big black screen, white text.
Thank you.
And it's great because it does one of the points, right? It tells the audience when they should clap, and that's a genuinely really important point that I've been told I value. And those title slides do that perfectly. But there is zero information on them. There's just nothing. There's nothing to remind your audience about what kind of questions they might want to ask. There's no key points. Your title slide and your conclusion slide are on the screen for the longest time, probably, especially your conclusion slide, because people ask questions, then there's the handover. Your conclusion slide is like sitting there for a while. Why not shove something on it and show people? Giving a moment for when they should clap is important, and you can put thank you on your conclusion slide, but put other things there as well. I personally write down the main takeaways. I think that's a normal, actionable piece of advice. If your main feature of your paper is a really nice definition, put it on the conclusion slide. Even if you said it 3 times already, do it a 4th time or do it a 5th time, put it up there. And what I try to do is I put my main theorems or definitions, just the main statements and like little key buzzwordy things to get people like remembering what the earlier slides were, so you will know what was on slide 2 because it will appear on the conclusion slide. And if you had a question about it but didn't dare ask during the presentation, then you are reminded at the end. And whilst you've got a few minutes for questions and all the things in front of you, you're like, yeah, I was going to ask about that. And then you can stick your hand up and query it. I think this is genuinely really important. So conclusion slides, title slides, do contradict my previous advice on less is more, but I'm going to separate them and put them into a different category. And this bit gets meta because you can imagine what the slide following is. I think overview and recap slides are really, really, really important. You've seen the first overview slide after my title slide. That was slide 2, by the way. And you've seen a recap slide already, and you're just about to see a recap slide. I got this really fun advice, and this is like kind of the basis for why I think these slides are important, which is that you should tell the audience what you're going to say. You may or may not remember that at the very start, I gave an introduction on the title that explained what I'm talking about and kind of motivated like why I think this is important. And then I said what I'm going to say. I gave you an overview slide, and now I'm saying it. And then you should tell them what you said afterwards. This coincidentally lines up with your repeat your important points twice. I think it's really important to make this kind of really deterministic, like lay it out, make it obvious to yourself when you're going to say your 3 things. You should introduce it in advance of saying it, go through the details, and then remind people that you're saying it. So, as I said, a recap slide, you should say what you just said, right? I just talked about knowing your slides. It's really important. You look sort of slick. If you can click the button and not look at the screen, people are going to be impressed and they're going to like be engaged because you can give them more of energy, you can give them more eye contact. I'm not looking at this the whole time. You're not seeing my back. Right? This is also bad for body language and gesticulation. One point per slide is as simple as it needs to be. Less is more, except for title slides and conclusion slides. And I think the recaps are good because I'm really like nailing the point home about what I'm talking about. And the final part is self-improvement, which I have to do quickly because I've spoken a little bit too much. So I'm going to give you 3 options, right? Like pick your difficulty level, easy, medium, or hard. I think all 3 are good, and the reason I'm showing them to you is because I've done all of them. And I think they are increasingly valuable. I don't know if they're necessarily worth the trade-off. You can do the cost-benefit analysis of what you might want to do at home after this. But I think the easiest option that is kind of a near must-do that was like distilled in me by my supervisor, which is you should practice your presentations. So get a small group, at least 2 people, one-on-one. It doesn't feel like it feels like a conversation. But as soon as you've got 2 people, right? If I just carve you 2 out, how to practice presentation with you 2, suddenly I have a small audience that I have to try to engage with. The more the better. Like maybe you belong to a small research group of 5 people, supervisor with 4 other PhDs. That's a perfect environment. And then have a detailed feedback discussion afterwards. Like you say, oh, well, I thought my presentations went well or badly, and they'll agree or disagree with you. And my supervisor was pretty blunt in his feedback, which is really useful. You should try to find people who are going to be honest with you. It could be friends, it could be people in your group, whatever. Just people who are willing to give you feedback and just digest like what went well, what didn't go so well, what slides need to change, what you said that was confusing. Right? Maybe I've said something so far that you didn't really understand or didn't agree with it. If this is a practice environment, you would have said like, slide 7, that was a bit weird. And after that discussion, you'll be able to improve your slides or improve what you're going to say and give a better version of the talk. I'll just say now, so I've recorded a lot of my presentations over the years that I presented. If you go and watch some of the ones I did like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, they are terrible compared to the ones I do now. A lot of this is practiced by just experience, but you can also tell, presentation by presentation, which ones I practice and which ones I didn't bother practicing. And it is genuinely night and day. I think the improvement is mind-blowingly obvious. And if you're feeling really brave or you've got the time, give your talk to an outside friend until the moment that they fall off, because they will fall off at some point, let's be honest. And at that moment, you should try to adjust your talk to keep them engaged for longer. I appreciate that some of the technical details are never going to be understood by friends from outside, but it's a good way of getting engaged for how followable your talk is. The intermediate option I'm doing now is record yourself or record your practice presentations and watch them back. My God, is it painful. You hate the sound of your voice, you hate how you look, you hate how you stand, you hate everything. Try to ignore that. But just watch it with the purpose of looking for a weakness, looking for something that you should have done better. It could be, like me, speaking a bit slower. Like I said earlier, I find it really difficult. It's a common fault of mine. And maybe you'll notice, like, oh, I stood like this the whole time I was giving my presentation, or maybe you just stood still or you're behind the podium. Just find something and make sure the next time you do a presentation, you don't do that thing, and then record it again. And after 3, 4, 5 presentations, you'll be a decent presenter, almost automatically. I genuinely think this is really easy. It might even be easier than practice presentations, but there is a real pain in watching them back. I will warn you in advance if you've not already done it. I now can just about feel comfortable watching myself present, because I've done it enough times now. Don't like it necessarily, but I'm kind of used to it. And the hard option, and this one I think is by far the most valuable and difficult for many reasons, time and resource-wise. Go to a public speaking class. I did this in the 3rd year, like end of 2nd year, early 3rd year of my PhD. Best thing I did for my presenting, main thing I got from it was confidence and some of the things I've been talking about today. I think it's really important to be in a sort of healthy, safe environment where people can critique you in a way that's not going to make you want to cry when you leave the session. And it wasn't about science. A lot of this was very personal. One of the sessions that they did that I thought was extremely productive was at the end of a public speaking session, so it's like a 90-minute session, and the last 15 minutes, they put up 8 random-ish questions on a board. You could volunteer to give a 2-minute talk answering one of the questions. You can pick it, and you stand in front of everyone really nervous, talking about something kind of random. And I did this on the 2nd session I went to. I was bricking out, can't lie. And the question I answered was something like, what described the most difficult phone call you've ever had? And you can probably all think right now what was the most difficult phone call you've had. And I reckon most of you had a horrible phone call at least once in your life, myself included. And now you're stood in front of 50 strangers explaining it. Pretty tough. And it was very valuable because now when I'm stood in front of you lot, this is easy. And I feel very confident, it feels very natural. I'm suddenly now like an expert. It's not so dreary and depressing. That's definitely part of it. But also the amount of confidence you get from public speaking is immeasurable. You also improve as a presenter because they tell you, oh, you spoke too quickly, or you didn't use good gesticulation, or it was incoherent, or your story wasn't simple. They give you direct feedback in these sessions. Go and attend one. I got this advice when I listened to a presentation that I really liked. I asked the guy at the end, like, why are you so good at presenting? He went, I went to public speaking. And he proudly claimed this. And I kind of logged it in the back of my mind. And about a year later, I actioned the same thing, and I couldn't recommend it enough. Genuinely academic talks feel easy after. The only thing I'm nervous about is making a non-trivial scientific mistake. As long as I did the prep beforehand, it's probably unlikely. So I feel good now. So, to recap finally, as this kind of meta, I'm repeating my 4 points twice. I talked about soft skills, I talked about slideshow basics, and I gave you 3 actionable ways to improve I genuinely think will work, which is to practice your presentations, to record your presentations, and to somehow attend public speaking courses. I think they're really important. And this is my conclusion slide. I talked about how dense my conclusion slides were earlier, and the fact that there should be an obvious moment when your audience claps. So I'd like to thank you very much for attending my talk.